Oh, nice. Fancy.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome back to Office Hours. Woo! As always, I'm here with August, who is my trusty colleague and an amazing effect creator and a talented interactive engineer. So, wearing so many hats. Hi, August.
Hey, how's it going, Celine?
How are you guys doing? I see in the chat that we have some people from Crash Course. I see Geraldine, I see KSA. Congratulations, guys. We are almost there. Tomorrow's the last Crash Course lesson. This is just our regular programming that is not related to Crash Course. So you don't have to go to the forum and answer today. But for those of you who are joining who don't know what Crash Course is, it is our Effect House's beginner course. It's a 3-week course that teaches you how to use Effect House. So if you're joining for the first time or if you're Effect House beginner and you want to learn more, we have everything in our website and you can just go check it out. So thank you guys for checking in. This is Office Hours, where every Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Time, we come on live and answer all of your questions. And August here has a fun project. What is this, August? There's green
Oh,
screens rotating in your face.
yeah. This is I was just testing the new green screen features to see if I could think of anything
Ooh.
interesting. So I've added two different green screen textures, and if I want to add a third, I can just go into add an asset and go to user media texture. Whenever you add these, that means that if it's in the scene, the user will be able to upload their own photo and it'll replace this texture anywhere you use it in the scene. So now, since I have more than two images here, I would just replace my third green card with my third user texture. And now this effect would be uh, basically the user could upload three images and they would just be floating around the face.
That's fantastic. I have one super hack for you guys. August, do you think you can press the user media texture in the assets panel? If you click it under there, you can set a default texture. So in case you want to tell people to upload an image, you can say upload an image here, or alternatively, you can just post a regular effect so it works as a regular effect. But if people want to swap out the effects, they can also upload their own effects, upload their own pictures to customize the effect. So I feel like this is the best of both worlds because it allows people to still use the effect even though they don't have a good image they want to use. But by selecting a default image, you can see that the image has changed over there and it's working. So Haley Callis is saying the user image feature is so exciting. Reem is saying, oh my gosh, so many ideas can be made with this. I know. User uploaded media has been my latest obsession. I've been playing around it with it so much. Actually, I think yesterday I just published two effects, and literally minutes before we came on live, like 2 minutes before we started the live, it actually got public. So I was wondering if you guys want to check it out with me and maybe get inspired. And I'll share some mega tips as well, something that I learned while playing around with the effect. So, also, do you guys know this funny song? Let's go to Celine's phone screen share page. Also, Reem has been saying she is totally obsessed with Effect House recently. She's addicted to Effect House. Haley Cat also said the same thing. She says, my break time is experimenting in Effect House. It is so relaxing and fun. I am so glad, guys. I really love how Effect House lets your creativity be free. So I just like wandering in the tool. Maybe I'm scrolling in the For You feed and I get inspired and I go on Effect House and I just like zone out and create. And it's the most zen thing ever, honestly. Carol, can we go to Celine's screen share page? As always, we have with us Carol, and she is operating the stream. Oh my gosh, thank you, Carol, for running the stream. Do you guys know this song? It's a song I've been obsessed with recently. Wake up, it's the first of the month. This song gets viral on the first of every month, but I just wanted to show you guys because that is literally one of my favorite songs recently. So this is my aesthetic. So if you go in, you can see that I've added sample textures: animal, place, what is that? Plant, character, season, hobby, color, movie, food. And of course, for National Girlfriend Day, apparently it's today. I only knew because my boyfriend texted me. But for National Girlfriend Day, I had to force him to give me all of these 9 images. So I'll show you what it looks like. There's currently a trend going around where it's like, what kind of aesthetic am I? And by adding these 9 images, you can see what kind of aesthetic you are or what other person thinks your aesthetic is. So I am gonna for animal, it's a cat because I'm a cat lover. Place, I think it's like a flower field. Plant, I have marigold. I have no idea, but I think he selected it because it was pink. For character, I think he did peach. I kind of love peach because in the latest Mario movie, like she's more of like a protagonist character and not like a person waiting to be rescued. Like she's so good with martial arts, and she was really bomb. I think for season he did spring. For hobby, I think this is a woman wearing a VR headset painting, which is literally me. So I think he has a good understanding. I think color he did pink. For movie he did Crazy Rich Asians. Haha. And for food he did sushi. So I've selected the 9 images that I want. And I'm going to press done. And then ta-da! This is my aesthetic grid. Isn't this so adorable? Okay. And the hack going back to August's page. Oops. Going back to August's screen share. If August, if you wouldn't mind clicking on the image section, image 1 maybe, if you click over there, you can select different draw modes. So right now, I think it is set at fit, but you can adjust it so that it can be stretch, it can be fill, but what I really like is fill and cut. So you saw earlier in my images how it was like a 1 by 1 grid, but the photos I uploaded were all different dimensions. So if you just click right now, if in the fit mode, if you imported the photo, it will basically show exactly that dimension and wouldn't make that 1 by 1 square. So what I ended up doing is select the fill and fit mode and adjust the size of the green screen in the above panel, the text, the size under textures. And by doing that, whatever image I upload, it will automatically be cropped to a 1 by 1 ratio, which is super useful. And I thought I'll share this mega hack with you guys. Okay, that was my intro spiel. August, did you want to say anything?
No. That's a really good tip. I think a lot of people don't look at the stretch modes and mess with them very much, but they can be really useful for stuff like that.
Okay, let's move on to the questions. This is a chance for you to ask all your questions. So if you had any questions creating an effect or during Crash Course, you can put it on the chat right here and I'll go review it. So TikTok Live is asking when we can get access to what August is sharing. This is just something that August created on the spot, but if you look below on the subgraph, you can see exactly how he created it. So August, do you mind just going through your thought process?
Yeah, sure. A lot of times when you want to spin multiple objects around some pivot, the best thing to do is to create an object that exists just to be that pivot. So here I have an image where, I can remove the image component because I don't actually want it to render. I just want it to be a point in space. And I can remove the look at component because I'm not using that either. So then I just have this transform that is basically a face sticker. And so for this, it's going to just follow the face. So it'll basically represent the center of the face. The reason you wouldn't want to do it directly with the face sticker is because a lot of these properties are going to be controlled by the face binding. So they'll be overwritten if you try to do anything in visual scripting. So I just add this one piece that's basically at the center of the face. And then I just set the rotation. So you can see set rotation is really the only thing functionally happening here. And so to figure out the rotation, I just get time, I multiply it so it moves at a certain speed. And the rotation that you see here, that's going to be an Euler values. So that's going to be 0 to 360 degrees rather than other units. So I'm basically saying when I multiply this, that every second that passes, it's going 200 degrees. So that's just a random number I chose. And then this little mod value just says that once it gets to 360, start back at 0. So it'll always stay between 0 and 360. And then I'm just rotating it by that amount. So just over time, it'll just keep making this number go from 0 to 360 at this specific speed. And then every single frame, I'm just setting it to whatever it should be. So that's a pretty simple way to rotate. And then all of these other objects, as you can see, I kind of arranged them around the face in a certain way so that when the center point rotates, it looks like they're kind of like just following each other around the face.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, August. I see that we are starting to get questions. Before we move on, do you mind clicking to the asset library? I want to show them the latest addition to our asset library, which is visual scripting subgraphs. Isn't that crazy? So if you click over there, there are multiple that you can choose from. My favorite is draggable image, but I think, is there one that is like rotating around as well?
Revolving object.
Yes.
Oh. You're telling me
So
I
one is,
didn't even have to know how to do this?
oh my gosh.
Here, let's take a look.
Also, I see that Adri Foxy is in the chat. I see Yed. I see Chantel. Hi, guys. I see M8XFF who says they've added a Spider-Man mask. Very nice, guys.
Nice.
Hi, Mike. Nice to see you again. Alberto Memory says hi as well. Hi, guys.
Yeah, so we've got this cube, and if we just select the cube in the transform, we don't even have to look inside of this. That's the beauty of downloading subgraphs, is you don't have to know how it works. A really, really good subgraph will have all of the options that you need on the outside, and usually it'll be pretty simple like this one. And it'll just, yeah, as soon as I plug it in, you can see it's automatically going. But yeah, axis start and axis end. To me, that sounds like it's like the amount of rotation where you start and the rotation where you end.
Mm-hmm. This subgraph is really good, well built. If you actually need some good examples of well built subgraphs, check out our template. August has worked on the head tilt quiz one and a lot of the new templates, and they have great reusable subgraphs. And Kel the Conqueror says, yeah, I actually just saved the subgraphs from a different project and import. Everything is so convenient now. That is a super hack, Kel, and I'm glad you're reusing all of the subgraphs.
You might recognize looping counter here. This was actually augo counter in pretty much every microjam. Yeah.
Speaking of, also,
yeah, it's.
Speaking of, also, we just released a new microjam project as well, right?
Yeah. We could. Should we take a look at that, or
I
just maybe mention it? Yeah,
mention
yeah.
that it's out there. And if we have enough time after getting to these questions, let's go definitely check it out because I think it is so cool. And I've already seen a lot of people use that microjam to create a super adorable effect. One thing is by Do It Fam, hashtag, at Do It Fam. He used the microjam subgraph to do a Barbie car, but he actually put a cutout of Margot Robbie and Ryan Reynolds. No, it's not
Ryan,
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. Oh my gosh, there's so many Ryans and Chris's in the Hollywood. Yeah, but it is actually so adorable. The car is pink. Go try it out. But first question from Reem. I have a question: how to make 2D images that respond depending on the audio of repetitive beats? Ooh. I think
The
this can be broken down into two parts. One is how to respawn images, maybe by tap or by a trigger. And then the second part is making it audio receptive. The audio part is fun, and I think we also went over in Crash Course, but how to make 2D images respawn.
well, the how to make 2D images respawn is kind of, there's a concept called pooling, where it's just like however many the maximum number of images you think you'll need, you just kind of create them like this. Like you'll have these 4 images, and you'll just uh, keep a looping counter.
Convenient, yes.
This that Yeah, that's so convenient. I wonder how that even. Um, and then you can just have a reference of these 4 and uh, yeah, select, right? Does that work? Or I was thinking of array. Sorry. And then you could do some scene objects, and then wait, that's the item. Okay, so you need a get item from array. So you just do this thing where every time you want to spawn a new one, you increment this value, and then you use that value as the index to pull from an array and just turn the object on. And then you'll have some other function that turns the objects off. So, for instance, a lot of times you use this for like a projectile in a video game. Like you shoot a missile or something, and then that missile explodes and it turns itself off. And then you just have a list of all of your missiles. And the next time you want to fire one, you turn one of them on, and that's your new missile, and it does all of its own kind of things. So we could just do this with like a few of these. Just 1, 2. It's like a cooking show where you have to watch me crack each egg. I don't have a pre-cooked meal for you guys.
You're
uh,
saying you didn't already crack all the eggs and make an omelet that you can easily swap out with?
not yet, not yet. Uh, okay, so set visibility. And then here you go. Now you have this. I can zoom into this as well if you need to take a look at this, because it's a pretty simple and reusable kind of pattern that you would use. So then visibility on, and now each time I click, it will increment the value by 1, and then it will turn the item on. And then, oh, that's it should be happening on screen tab. Oh, interesting. Is there something? It's a little strange. The screen tap isn't triggering increment. Let's do a little test. Is the screen tap triggering if? Okay, so there's something else happening where the project is frozen. Yeah, I'm not sure. It could be that there's something happening in here where the yeah, I'm not sure. Something about importing, right, this subgraph maybe is, nope. There's something going on though. But yeah, trust me, the guy who made a broken project, that this will be a great way to turn your objects on in a specific order. Um, and then if you want to get more complicated, you can always do that. But this is a pretty straightforward way, very common pattern that people use to just have a set of objects that they want to spawn, and then just keep spawning them in order, so you don't have to find a way to create a whole object.
That is awesome. Do you think we can also connect it so the trigger is audio reactive as well?
Yeah, we can try. The audio stuff has changed recently,
Mhm.
from what I remember, and I'm not 100% sure on the
The sound
beats.
library is back, everyone. So if you use the sound library node, your user can choose any sound from the TikTok library and add it to the effect, and it will be responsive to that effect.
um, yeah, so there's a few different things that you could use to detect onset detection, detects the onset of a beat. Um, so I guess if you wanted to do that, hmm, let's see. Are you very familiar with audio stuff, Celine? Would you rather?
I think we briefly went over it in the crash course as well, but I think there's an audio resource controller, and you can connect the sound library to the audio resource player or something. Yeah.
Um, cool. Yeah. So then we have our built-in speaker. I'm just not 100% sure how to get the beat detection, since
Mhm.
that that part is a bit new to me. So yeah. Any tips?
Yeah, maybe we should go to the audio resource player as well. Yeah.
Um, yeah, this just essentially you would want to make some sort of trigger based off of this. So you might want to. It doesn't seem like any of these are trigger related. They just output values. So you would want to watch the values, I think, and then check if they pass a certain threshold. One thing that I like to use for this that I could share with you guys um, is a subgraph from some of my personal projects that's called set state. And I think I put it in a couple micro jams as well, because it's a really nice, concise way to just check if something has switched values. So one thing you would probably do is, this one is for bool, and I actually don't think I've saved a number one, but I've made one before. And you might want to just change this to uh, number, and then you'll also want to change this, or you know what, we could keep it bool. We'll keep this simple. We'll keep this simple. So we'll keep it bool, and on the outside of this subgraph, we'll just say greater than some value. We'll just say this is our threshold. So maybe our threshold for the beat is like 1. I'm not 100% sure how these beat values work. We should do some sort of thing next week where we talk about the beat stuff after we each have some time to like refresh the new stuff, the new nodes. Um, but you would basically hook something in to check if it's surpassed the value, and then this Boolean value in this set state, and I can share this afterwards. We'll just check, is it true or false, and what was it previously. So when it is newly true, so when it breaks the threshold, then we could say this start value here is our trigger, and so that's pretty nice. And then we would just probably want like update or something checking this every frame. And that's how I would do it. I'm just a little rusty on the part where we kind of understand the beat detection nodes.
Okay, I will work on that while August answers the other questions, and then we will compile our collective knowledge and give Reem the solution she wants. But at the moment, I have another question from Haley Cat Paws. She's asking, is the fur material very heavy on effect performance?
Yeah, the fur material can be. It really depends on the settings that you have. Let's here. Let's start a fresh project since this one is kind of bricked a little bit. Uh, oops. Yeah, I can just save this as untitled, and then create project, and I'll pop open fur material, and that will be an asset library, I believe. Oh, yeah, here it is. So yeah, fur does. If you're familiar with like shaders at all or materials, the fur shader has some settings where you can change how many like passes it's doing, which means that it'll process multiple times to add multiple layers of fur. Uh, and I think that am I crazy? One of these values, some of these values will definitely affect the performance. Um,
I am not 100% sure how the fur material was created internally, but I think based on how I created my fur material, I do it by basically building a lot of shells. Like, let's say, you guys know that doll where it's like a really big doll, and then you open it and there's like a smaller doll, and then if you open it, there's like a smaller doll, and then it just keeps going on, and then there's like a layer of dolls. So basically, imagine that on a circle, like circle, it gets bigger, 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 and bigger, and on each of the different layers you kind of extrude the color so it seems like there's fur. That's how I usually create my fur material based on that hypothesis. If you increase the length dramatically, maybe it might have an effect in the performance. What do you think, August?
well, yeah, that's possible. I think it. Yeah, it really depends how it's made. But you're right. That sounds like something. One thing to look at in this fur material is this instance count. If you set it down to like, oops, if you set it up to 50, I think it's going to be doing a lot more processing. If you set it down to 5, as you can see, it looks significantly different, but it's going to be running much faster. As you can see, 5, it almost doesn't even look like a fur material at that point. So finding the sweet spot for the piece that you're using is could probably help. As you can see at 20, it looks like fur again. But if you're worried about performance, this is one way. Like 15 looks fine. So if you're right at that edge where you're afraid you're not going to pass QA, maybe bumping this number down until whatever threshold it is might save you a frame or two. Um, but if you're using a fur material, I wouldn't worry too much. I would just acknowledge that it's a little bit of a heavy material and just plan your entire effect around not putting too many things that are too heavy in it.
But personally, based on my experience of using the fur material, I've never had a problem where I add the material was what is causing the glitch or it had a heavy performance impact. So I think you should be free to use the fur material. Oh, and one thing that I want to show you guys with the fur material is you can set an underlying texture that allows you to adjust the underlaying color of the texture. So, Carol, if we can go to my screen sharing page again. So this is an effect that I created. It's called Fuzzy Cat. It's a cowboy hat. But you can see that I've added all these colors. So let's say you're doing something like a bear. You can paint the 3D model as if you are already doing it and have that texture be underneath the fur material. So if you have a variety of colors like this. Okay, going back to August's screen share page.
Hey, it's a siren not at my apartment this time.
Earlier, we were just talking about how August's house has the iconic garbage truck, but now it's me, and it seems like there's a siren. Another question from uh, Alberto. Alberto says, I haven't been able to get the user's skin tone. Would you mind pointing me in the right direction? Yes. So, my tip for you is use the material editor, the new feature. So, material editor, there's a node that lets you sample the color of a UV coordinate, and then you can add face texture that we pulled from the 3D mask and sample points from that. But you want to make sure that you're not pulling, like, let's say you're pulling for your forehead and then somebody has bangs. In that case, that person's skin color will turn out to be whatever the color of their hair is. So that's not something we want. So make sure you average from a different variety of points and average the color so that we get an accurate, pretty similar result of what the person's skin color is. But August, do you think we can do that? Or we're planning to have a material editor office hour soon. So if August doesn't get to cover it today, we can also look at it in that office hour. But how you go to material editor, just like August did, go to the plus icon under the asset and add an empty material.
Yeah. And then to add an input parameter to your material, you can just open up this My Items. It's the hamburger menu. And then you can take in a vec2. And this vec2 should be the screen space UV coordinates. Well, yeah. Depending on if this is a full screen effect. And then that would be like the screen space coordinates that you would sample. And I think you would just do this. And this, the texture you would be sampling would be the camera texture. So you would be sampling what's on the user's input video. And then, yeah, this value would output a color, and this would be the pixel at that location. So like Celine said, you really want to sample multiple places. Like the bangs is one example where you would get the incorrect skin tone, but also shadows on the face or highlights could be vastly different than their actual skin tone. So an average is really helpful. So you would maybe feed in, instead of just this vec2, this would be, we'll call it sample point. You would just feed in a sample point, and maybe you would make like 5 sample points, and it would be like the chin, the nose, the cheeks, the forehead, something like that. And then you could average them by doing this. So take the whole color. Oh, right. Maybe we'll try RGB, because we know it's always going to be, yeah. I like multiplying with numbers. Whenever you're multiplying with a color, it becomes a little more confusing because you can't just type in the numbers in the same way. So then I would, if I'm averaging 5 points, I would just say multiply this by 0.2 for all of these values. And then when you add them together, you get 0.2 of one, 0.2 of another, 0.2 of another, and you end up with like one whole average of all of them. So yeah, if you did this a bunch of times and you would be putting different sample points in, then you're going to be sampling, 4 or 5 points on the screen, and then you can just add them all. And this would be your RGB value. So you end up needing like 3 adds, and then you'll convert to color. So yeah, I'll show you how to connect the other points too. And I don't think I've tried plugging in a Vec3 into a shader color output. I don't know if that works, or if you need a cast. You might need a cast. And to change the cast, you want to select it and then make sure to check the color that you want it to cast to. And then anything you put in this will output as a color. It'll like convert it to color. And then, okay, so now we have this empty material we created. So now if we click on this, we can see our sample point is here. And if we were to make 5 sample points, we would see 5 sample points. And then we could do a face tracker. We could do, maybe we could do face sticker, honestly. And this face sticker, we could make it really small so we know exactly where it's going to go. And we would just attach it to the nose like that. And then we would, and then go back to our material, and we'll pin this sample point, get sample point. And we would essentially just, oh yeah, I want to set, not get, sorry. And then we would just set this.
August.
Yeah.
I know recently in 2.8, we released a feature called Pin to Mesh that allows you to pin 3D objects directly to a point in the mesh. Do you think using that would have a more accurate result?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So to use pin to mesh, I would think we would have to create a 3D face mesh.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. That's good to discover.
And it would also be helpful that we have a 3D face, since we also need to extract the face texture from the 3D face. 3D face.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so 3D face. And then I'm playing the part of the learner here. The pin to mesh, is it in the components?
Yeah, in the hierarchy panel, I think it is under 3D.
Gotcha. Okay, so our pin to mesh here is our target. Oh, I see. Yeah, if you wanted to get more accurate than the face sticker, we could say, we'll delete this.
Aww,
we could say,
August, Lord Scamp on TikTok Live is saying August is so cool and that they love your effect.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Lord Scamp.
That's amazing. I love that. Okay, so in the target just means what mesh we're trying to pin something to. So we'll say 3D face. And then the orientation is position. So that, I think that just means that we don't care if it like rotates it to the normal of the face, if I remember correctly. And then the UV is going to, as you can see, the texture on the face also reveals our UV, and having this checkerboard pattern is kind of nice because it shows us how quickly it's moving. So if we change this UV value, it'll find the closest vertex to that UV point, and it'll stick to that vertex. So like, even if your face rotates in a weird way, it'll find that 3D mesh point. So probably 0.5 on the X is going to center it in the face for us nicely. And then if we take a look at this face mesh, we can It's funny how the yellow outline doesn't match. It's like a whole different thing. That's, I guess, from face sticker or something. We don't need face sticker anymore anyway. And then, so that's like the 2D face, I guess. And then if we go to image, now we can move this Y value until it gets to the tip of the nose, which is what we want. And then we can do this with several different, we can call this sample point 1. We could do that with several different things. And then what we have is this is the 3D point if we take this position, right? So that's not really going to help us because we want the 2D screen space point. So what we would want to do is convert this. So world to screen is a good way. And then we'll just select the camera that is that we're using for all of this stuff. Yeah, this would be the camera that is looking at the 2D or the image that we're using here. And then we would want to pass in that world position, and then on the other side we'll get the screen position. And if we want to peek at that, yeah, so it's between 0 and 1 values, which is that viewport space, that screen, that normalized screen space that we would use for a UV. So then we would put it into here, and then every frame we are passing in that correct sample point. So now our empty material here has its output value. The only thing that I'm not totally sure about is why in this view the pin to mesh point is not on the nose. And it could be because I did something different here. It might be because of this look at. We probably don't want that, yeah, because the look at is definitely going to affect it. And then we probably want to normal out some of these. And then, okay, so it's facing down. All right. It might be setting. Maybe we should just make it bigger. We can't really see it. That's part of the problem. Okay. But I think we wanted this to be like 90. But it's setting the direction, I think, is. So, okay. So orientation will set the position. All right. I think we want to change that to change this to 0 so that it's only the pin to mesh affecting it. Yeah. Not sure why it's down on the chin. Sorry about that. Well, maybe another thing to look into. Learning new features with Celine in August. But yeah, once you have the sample point, let's take a look at inside of the material. So what this currently is doing is, well, we're multiplying by 0.2, so that's, we definitely need to have a fifth one for it to mathematically make sense. So we'll just add this fifth one in, and with this we can add it to the rest of them, and that will work out. And then we have this color output. So if we wanted to, on the 3D face, just change the face, the face paint material, yeah, to our new empty material, it should, yeah, so it's changing a lot based on our value. And as you can see, it looks like it's flashing between her hair, and sometimes picking up the sometimes maybe picking up the 2D image or the background, because that sample point is a little off. I'm not 100% sure why though. Yeah, but that is the basic flow of what you would do, and we can definitely look into what about the pin to mesh is causing the offset. You could also offset the position, but that would kind of defeat the purpose of the pin to mesh. If you offset any of these, it's going to be kind of the same as just putting it generally on the head tracker.
Thank
What do
you,
you think?
August. We will go investigate more on the pin to mesh, but I wanted to give a shout out to Florentia. I think she made some 3D eyelashes and she combined pin to mesh, and she also created a material to play with the coordinates. And now it's actually really cool. I tried it out myself, and then if you turn around, usually right now, if you just put the eyelash texture, it's two-dimensional. So if you turn like this, it doesn't come out of your eye like this. But Florentia made a 3D version using pin to mesh and the custom material. And now if you turn to the side, you can still see the eyelashes. So I think this would be the future of makeup effects in Effect House. So everybody go ask Florentia or try playing in the tool to learn that feature. But I think it's super cool. And moving on to the next question.
Real quick,
Some
Celine,
people,
I did solve the problem, and I'm not sure why it does this. Both cameras here are exactly the same, but because my 3D face was under a different render node on a different camera, it seems like for some reason there was that offset. And when I moved the 3D face to the same render node as our sample point object, it seems like it attaches it to the correct part. So not sure why that is. I'm definitely going to report it as a bug internally just in case. But it could have, it could be something else that I didn't notice that I'm doing wrong. But yeah, just to let you know, if you're seeing that same problem, just move your 3D face to the same camera as your object, and it seems like that's the correct way to use it.
okay, thank you
Uh,
for the solving. I think it's super useful. Thomas Azrael is asking, can we attach a 3D face on a texture sequence?
a 3D a texture sequence to onto a 3D face, or
Based on I'm just reading whatever is in Thomas's comment. Thomas says, can we attach a 3D face to a texture sequence? Thomas, please let us know in the comments if that is the question that you were asking. Adding a 3D face on a texture sequence, or adding a texture sequence to a 3D face, because face mask on texture sequence that contains face. No, at the moment that is not available. Okay, last question of the day. No, we have two more questions. Uh, Projo AR Filters, who is also going to be live tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. PT with me to explain and go through his gaming projects, asked this question: could we please have a demo of how to use the for loop?
yeah. So I've used the for loop in microjams a lot. My favorite way to use it. Here, let's just reset with a new. I'll save this as an untitled 2. You know what? I'll just save it on my desktop. All right. So create new project. The best way to use it is with the get children scene objects. So a lot of times, or maybe we could just open, let's see what template has it. I'm not sure. Well, let's just create a 3D cube. So we've got cubes are the best because they're globally just So simple and understandable. There's 4 cubes here. We could move them around if we want, if that makes it easier. Oops. But essentially, if you wanted to do something with all of these cubes, a lot of times you would just manually plug them into their own kind of subgraphs. Maybe you would have like, let's just do a very, very simple subgraph. Combine. We'll make this a vec3. Multiply. Get time. Oops. We'll just multiply this so it goes fast. So it's very easy to visualize. And then we could also add another multiply since we're going to reuse this. I always love making reusable pieces. It always just feels so good to like copy paste a big chunk of code and just get to totally reuse it again. So now we have this combine here. So we would say set position maybe. And now this, let's throw in an update. Now we could see that this cube, and maybe I have them a little too far off the screen, but you can see this bounces up and down, right? Now, if I wanted all the cubes to bounce up and down, I might just copy paste this chunk and then manually adjust each of these. But what if I wanted to make it so easy for anybody to just add, maybe I'm making templates. Maybe that's like my job. Maybe I do that all the time. No. But like this is a kind of a template way of thinking where you're like, I don't know how many cubes somebody else will want to make, right? So we could do this thing where we put it on a parent object. Let's see, just want a blank and empty mesh, that works. Probably empty scene object is better, but and then we have this empty mesh. Now this is considered a parent object. If you're familiar with that term, it just means that we would call each of these objects under it child objects. And so this parent object, you often use these to just hold a group of things without actually the empty mesh. It doesn't even have to have the mesh. We can remove that. It's just a blank object that you can use to like group things. So you would say get children scene objects. This is the golden node that I love. And here with the object picker, which is another feature that I love, you would select that parent. And then the recursive just means how many steps deep. I usually will just have one step deep, and my parent will just be the holder of like one set of things in most cases. So get children scene objects. What you really usually want to do is just plug in a start node into this, and then don't plug anything else in, because if you just do it one time when the effect loads, it'll collect those children scene objects. And since we don't have any nodes that move an object to a different parent, this will always be your same group of scene objects. So you never have to refresh it. You don't have to keep doing it on update. This is like a nice, efficient way to cache all of your things, all of your children objects. And then you would, get item from array. And this is where the for loop comes in. So you figure out how many are here. One useful thing is the array info node. You can plug the array into here, and it'll output the length. So how many objects are in there. So you can see I is less than 4. I think that's the best correct way. And then you plug your index in here so that every time the for loop does its body execution here, it does a separate one for each index. And then we could use an update here, and then we could say on update, so once per frame, go through all of my child scene objects. And what we can do is, set set position, set transform. Okay. And then we could also do a get transform or transform info. We could do either local or world. It doesn't really matter as long as both your world transform info and your set transform match. So since it's not local, I uncheck this box. Anything you don't want to set with this method, you just connect. So we'll connect the rotation, scale, and that's it. And then for this transform, since we're going through a for loop, we really want to make sure that get item from array. These are going to be scene objects. And then get component by type. We're going to have transform, get component by type transform. And that's so that we can do this world transform setting with each different transform that come from each child. And we don't have to copy paste it. We just have one thing, and the for loop automatically changes which objects we're acting on. So it's really nice for that. And then, as you can see, we have our sine wave here. So we no longer need to make this individual set position operate. We can plug this in to our new position. And then we just have to finish connecting everything. So the body execute is how we'll execute the getting of the component. And then after we get the component, we want to set the value. And now they should all bounce together. As long as, let's see. Oh yeah, scene object array. So sometimes if you don't connect some of these nodes, you'll notice it'll freeze up a little bit. Okay, so here is the thing. See how all of the cubes are bouncing together in one place? Well, sometimes when you're working with a group of things, rather than trying to set one thing, you have to really pay attention to the fact that some values will change, some values will stay the same. So what we really want is to split the position out of what it currently is. So the cubes, they have their X and Z values. We only want to animate the Y value, right? So what we want to do is create a combine, and we want to feed in the X and Z. We want to keep those values. We don't want to set them from a random algorithm. And then we want to just take our Y value from this calculation that we're doing, that we started with. And when we do this, each of them will keep their separate spots, and they'll just animate the Y. So this is kind of thinking in groups of objects and how to program them all programmatically with a for loop. The last piece that you would want, because this looks a little weird, and it's why would you want them bouncing all at the same time? Maybe they have different values. Well, you could keep an array of some different values of like an offset in the sine wave or something, or you could just do something simple like take this index number and just use that. Let's add one to it. One of these is 0, so we don't want it to not bounce at all. So we'll just add 1 so that none of the values are 0, and then we'll just multiply it. This is the time we're multiplying it, so this is kind of the speed. So now you can see that the higher the index, the faster it bounces. So this is just one of thousands of ways that you can make them bounce differently. And this could be a really cool way to do some different things where your effect looks kind of random, and adding that randomness and that noise kind of can make it look interesting or beautiful. So I think from that, you could extrapolate how you could manipulate groups of objects in a lot of different ways. You don't have to set the position. You could set all the other properties, the opacities of images, whatever you can get from. It's basically this get component by. Anything that you can get from any of these types of components, you could manipulate in this kind of group way. And it makes it really awesome for templates, because now, if you take a look at this, let's see, I can duplicate this, and then I can move it over And as you can see, that's all I had to do. I didn't have to edit the code at all. And now there's a fifth one, a fifth cube, and it's bouncing as well. I didn't add any extra code, and it's just kind of following the formula. So if you look in some of the newer templates that are coming up, you're going to really like some of the templates that are coming out, because I've been spending a ton of time trying to research how do I do all this kind of automation stuff, and using the for loops, using the get child scene objects to make it so anyone can make some really complex games and stuff without having to actually know visual scripting. So
That
hopefully
is perfect. I would during crash course I asked people like, hey, what are some of the things that you would like to learn? And their number one thing was wanting to make TikTok games. So I think that would be super useful. And I think this is also a slightly relevant question. In the comment section, in the YouTube, somebody asked, like, is there a way, can we use, no, this was not the question I had in mind. Sorry, give me 1 second, guys, looking up. Oh, yeah. Mike asked, how can I make two objects detect if they are interposed in a line? I want to verify if they are colliding when moving. And we've added a new feature called Collider. And I think before we had a very useful resource by August that allows you to detect if the 3D objects have collided, but now it's built into our feature as well. So if you want to see if they've collided, you can add a collider. And on the collider, there's a node to see if it has collided. I think it's called collision effect. And if they have collided, it gives you some information. Yeah, there's a node called collision event and collision info. And one of the things that you can get is a Boolean. Boolean means it's either yes or no, or black and white. It's two options, true or false, and has collided. So if they have collided, the Boolean would be true. And if that hasn't collided, it would be false. So based on that, you can see if something has collided. But we are adding new useful features like this all the time in the tool, combined with all of the resources and visual scripting snippets and subgraphs that makes it super easy for you guys to use our tool to create fun effects. Okay. Last question of the day. This is a simple question. Eritrean Media Network asks you, hello, first of all, thank you so much for your help. That is so lovely. I love the little preface. I want to ask him, can we make FPS less than 1 in set animated texture?
In set animated texture, or
Yeah, I think they're talking about maybe an animated texture sequence properties, if they can make it less than 1 or set animated.
yeah, I mean, I would just try it. Let's see what happens. Import
If
texture.
you make it 0, I think it just stands still, right?
That's what I would guess. If it's like 0, it would pause, would be the desired effect. Let me just find a animation sequence. Okay. Sorry, I have so many assets. Okay. Here we are. Okay. I'll import this. It's just characters, but whatever. Okay, so animated texture. So this is the texture. Let's just put a 2D screen image so we can see it. So right off the bat, that's what it's looking like. But if we add a screen tab to trigger this, and we just say we want to set this to 0, um, then it, oh, interesting. It'll slow it way down. Oh, I didn't set this to 0. I set it to 1. Okay, so you cannot set it to less than 1. Sorry. It looks like the minimum FPS is 1. That could be a feature request we could submit to allow the ability to set it to 0 to pause it. Might be good. And then there's no other option to really pause it. So yeah, that would be maybe a future feature request. I could see how it would be useful.
Yeah, I agree. Let me share the forum link in our YouTube chat so you can go and add it to our feature request channel. But I think that is the end of our office hours today. However, before ending, I wanted to share with you guys this wonderful resource. I was trying to figure out the solution to Reem's question. Carol, if we can go to my screen sharing page, we can look over here. So, this is a learning resource guide about sound library, and it basically fixes the questions and answers the questions that we had on earlier. August, I'm screen sharing with my monitor. Can you just double check that it's in my screen share page for me?
Yeah, the sound library.
Yes.
Yeah, looks good.
No, no, no. I mean the in the general live.
Uh,
Carol,
yeah,
can we go to my screen share?
yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I see what
perfect.
you're saying.
So if you look over here, you can play. These are the description of all of the audio nodes under visual scripting. You can look for it in the audio, or you can also click over here and look for sound library or audio. But if you do that, it takes you to this page, and then it had all of the visual scripting code examples of what you need to do in order to use the sound library or beat. So this allows you to sound library beats detection.zip. So I think this is exactly what we wanted earlier. And if you also wanted to add your audio, like your custom MP3 file, along with the sound library, this is what you can do. So these are the resources. Um, Hope they were useful to you. But I think this is the end of our stream. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Make sure to come at tomorrow at 10:30 a.m., where Projo AR Filters will be explaining, showing an example of a couple of his effects and showing us like what a good gaming project is, how to come up with the ideas for the gaming project, how do you plan everything. So it is going to be a really useful section. Make sure you are tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, evening, afternoon, dusk, morning, and goodbye. Bye, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye. Would it be like the end of a Truman Show?